So, this session, we will be talking about the anxiety and panic attacks. Um, this is, remember that the last time we talked about how you really need to get a handle on your schedule and um, get a handle on not getting distracted from when there are distractions around you. And some of the things that we talked about is to give yourself permission to take a break. We just came out of, well, we really are in the middle of a holiday since there's New Year's Eve coming up here. And so if you find yourself, if you find yourself getting caught up still with the holidays and having a lot of distractions, these are still good tips for you to keep in mind. But remember that we talked about how you really cannot just hit the ground running all the time and expect to be able to be in high gear all the time. So the key is for you to really have a balance. So it's okay to take a break, and sometimes it's important to take a break so that you connect with others and have some time to decompress so that you can come back refreshed. Because chances are life happens and life's gonna come in to interrupt. And if you let it completely bother you because you feel like you have to be studying all the time, it actually makes things more stressful than if you just accept that you need to take this break because you have family commitments or other commitments. Try to use that time to rest and fit in some studying where you can. If you are able to then make sure that you get some good rest, you will be able to go through and essentially stay more focused, have more of a helping you build that endurance and not get burnt out during this process because it is going to be a lengthy process. Okay. And so part of what happens when we have distractions is we come back from the holidays, and I've done this a long time where the trend seems to be right before the holidays. And for the February exam, it's the Christmas and, well, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's break. It usually occurs right before Christmas that people start to feel burnt out and not really liking the process. And in for the July bar, it's before the 4th of July holiday. And then they, because they feel the burnout, they really don't feel like studying during the holidays, which makes things worse because when they come back to studying, then they it takes them a while to get back into it, which builds up that anxiety because they feel like they've lost time if they didn't spend the time well. And hopefully you guys did, because you have either been coached by me or have listened to the fifth session that I did about how you will be able to, if you do it well, create this balance to be able to get some good rest, because you will likely be forced to take some time off simply because of the holidays and family. And sometimes even if you don't celebrate, you still have distractions just because things will be closed and things won't be normal just by the sheer fact that the world is in a sense on break for the holidays. Okay. So then after the holidays, panic sets in because you feel that anxiety, you feel like, especially in for the July bar, after the 4th of July, you get this sense of, oh my goodness, there's only less than a month. And then for the February bar, you think, oh no, either I haven't started or my study got interrupted so much that now I have less than 2 months to go. What am I going to do? So anxiety and panic can set in. The key, though, is to not let, as we've talked about, don't let things get worse by ruminating over things that you can't control anymore. You obsessing over it is not going to help. It's going to make things worse, in fact. So what do? We talked about how you get into problem solving mode. You take control. And one way to take control of the situation is to really understand what's going on here. I this is an article that I found, and this is from the UK, but it's the most recent article I found on anxiety, and so I thought I'd use it. I know the Mayo Clinic has stuff on anxiety as well, but that's from 2018 was the most recent that I could find from it. I believe it was from 2018. So the concepts are similar. So I decided to use this article to spearhead our conversation. And so, what is anxiety? This article talks about the fight, flight, or freeze response, and anxiety disorder, this generalized anxiety disorder. There are many types, and I'm not going to go through the types and really dive into all of those. I'm talking more of like just your general anxiety that most of us, when we say, oh my goodness, I'm so anxious, that's what I mean. So this is not by any means any medical diagnosis or anything like that. Obviously, if your anxiety is really serious, and that's the whole point, is to try to prevent it from getting that far. But if it is really that bad for you, if you have repeated panic attacks, and today we won't really talk about panic attacks. If you guys want me to, let me know and I can do a more detailed discussion about panic attacks and how to deal with those, because I've done research on those as well. But in any case, if it really is a big issue, please consult a professional in the field and talk to your doctors and all of that. Okay. But the idea is, what anxiety is, if you understand it, it really is if you look at it from the science, the medical perspective, anxiety is where we catastrophize things, or our mind, when we start to go down that spiral of what if, oh no, this could happen, that could happen, and you tend to be dramatic in the negative sense, because I think our mind, unless you've trained it and unless you are more of a positive person, our minds tend to, and we've talked about this too, it's in our nature to be thinking of the worst, because that's one way of protecting yourself. And we have talked about, that's why we tend to ruminate, is because we tend to want to try to solve things before it happens. But the problem with that is, when you catastrophize, your brain gets fired up in a way that becomes negative for you, because when you are catastrophizing, I believe it's the prefrontal cortex that gets activated. And when you're visualizing all the things that can go wrong, that part of your brain gets activated. And that part of your brain is linked to the amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of your brain that is in control of stress. It's your stress system. And so when that part of your brain senses that there's a problem, there's a change, there's something that's wrong, then it thinks it's in danger and it needs to warn the body. So the way it warns the body is to release adrenaline. And when you release adrenaline, if it's acute, if it's just here and there, and if it's really justified, like if you see a lion in front of you, then you need that adrenaline so that you can think more quickly and solve the problem. And so it's healthy when that happens. That's the fight or flight response. But what happens is if it keeps on firing because you keep catastrophizing, you keep coming up with scenarios of how things can go wrong, or you keep the negative thinking and not try to think more positively, it's going to keep firing. When it keeps firing, then it becomes chronic, and it, instead of releasing adrenaline, that adrenal gland releases cortisol, and the cortisol is where the cortisol gives you the physical symptoms that it manifests in feeling really chronically tired, feeling like you have a difficulty concentrating, you have low-grade fatigue, you have the difficulty sleeping, just feeling tired in general. And so that keeps you from functioning, and it just keeps you in this constant state of stress and anxiety. And so that's what's happening when when you are experiencing anxiety. If you understand that, then that's where you can work towards changing your mindset, changing it in a way that's going to be effective, where it will help you to reshape your thinking so your brain is not activating that prefrontal cortex, and it goes back to more like just your normal brain functioning more efficiently. Okay. And so anxiety, of course, I don't think I need to go through and talk about problems that it can lead to. I am pretty sure we're well aware of them. But if you're interested, obviously, you can pause the video and read. These are just passages that I pull from that website itself. And you can go to the website and read that. I can also, yes, so yeah, we all know that it leads to mental health issues, other mental health issues, and other physical health issues, because as we've already talked about, the tiredness and the sleeping problems and all of those, insomnia, and we've done a session on getting good sleep and insomnia, so you can try to think about what we talked about in that session. Okay. The key now is to talk about how best to manage the anxiety. As I mentioned already, the best way is to really change your mindset, and generally there are some things that you can do, and this has a list of things to do. Right? Generally this is good advice, and for, of course, talking to someone, manage your worries, setting out specific times for you to go through and focus on your focusing on your worries. We've talked about how you just set a worry time period where you set a timer, and for that amount of time you can sit and complain to yourself. You can write, you can free write, just vent, and then tear the piece of paper and burn it or throw it away, whatever. But it's just for you to get it all out of your system, basically. I really like to also suggest that in addition to just doing that brain dump of your worries, you also spend some time doing a gratitude session. We talked about doing gratitude journals before. And you could also, if you are in a place to do it, in a position to do it because your mindset is not that bad, you can, when you put your worries down, put two things that negate those worries. So like you think, oh, the train, the plane is going to be delayed. Let's say you say, well, there's no reason to think that the plane's going to be delayed because one, the weather's cleared up now, and two, if it's delayed, what's the worst that can happen? I'll wait in the hotel, or I'll make a different plan. It's, as we've talked about, don't catastrophize things. Most things are not life and death. A lot of things that we are anxious about is not life and death, and we've talked about that before. So put things in perspective. Okay. Your physical health, getting enough sleep really helps. I think we've talked about how if you, most people when they're tired, they're cranky and they don't think clearly, and that's when problems occur. Eating and exercising, basically sleep, eating, exercise, the three main things that we try as much as we can. If you can keep those things as much as you can in a good place, chances are anything that comes up, you will be able to deal with it. And so keep all those things in mind when you're going through a moment in time where you are not feeling at your best. The article also talks about the breathing exercises, but there is a warning about doing mindfulness exercises. The difference between the mindfulness exercise and the breathing exercises is mindfulness is you're trying to look at your paying attention to your thoughts and things that are happening to you in the moment so that you can acknowledge, accept, and so you can think, okay, that's a negative thought that I have. Or you can acknowledge and really be, in a sense, be really honest, so that you can recognize the situation. And then, of course, then you recognize that, okay, that is just a thought. That's just my thought. It's not what is actually, you kind of evaluate the thought. And so, sometimes that's not helpful because when you're already in a bad position, you may not want to be looking at your negative thoughts because that can make things worse. So be careful with that. When we talk about breathing exercises, I had mentioned that, you can take deep breaths, and the breaths that really work would be those belly breaths. You really want to breathe from your diaphragm. It makes things worse if you are breathing from what would it be? I guess from your just the top part, the part where you're taking short breaths. So it seems like it's coming from your lungs, and you're not really filling that belly up. for more of a deep breath. I believe statistically, if you do the belly breathing, it is real that after 45 minutes, people will not experience any anxiety. Like they will experience calmness. And so if you do it well, it won't take you 45 minutes. But if it gets really, really bad, then um, set out 45 minutes to sit and do your breathing exercises. And some of you may think 45 minutes, I don't have that time. I can't even find 5 minutes to study as it is. Well, you're not being productive anyway. You're not using that 45 minutes to be productive, because chances are you are using it to loop through all these negative thoughts in your mind. So keep that in mind, and maybe sitting down, even if you don't do it well, forcing yourself that time can help calm you down at least a little bit. So give it a try. The keeping the diary, in addition to doing that brain dump that I've talked about, it's a good idea to make notes. It's kind of like if you're on a diet, they say keep a journal of what you eat, and then you can really see how much you're eating or what exactly you're eating and why you're putting on weight or not putting on weight, or why you're feeling bad or tired, all those things. So it's a good idea to lay it out to see. It will help you find what your triggers are, so that if things come up that you know is going to be a trigger, then you will hopefully be able to plan ahead. So for example, if you're forced to spend time with relatives that you are not able to get away from, either because you just don't want a confrontation or you don't want to make it known that you don't like them, then prepare how will you deal with that situation. Maybe like try hanging out with other people, or tell yourself that you don't have to respond to everything that they say. And again, those things are just personal development things that you just work on all the time, and do the best you can to prepare for it, and know that you may get anxious in that moment. If you thought about the situation, play it out and do scenarios in your mind, or have someone else role play with you. The key is to have someone you trust to be able to talk these things through. And if you don't, then you can trust yourself. Just write it out and play out those scenarios, and craft it. Write your own story, make your own play. Say, and even if you write out, how horrible that person was, the way they behaved, and you were vindicated, and all your other relatives are on your side now, whatever it is, make yourself feel better so you're less stressed going into the situation. Okay. And I really like this second part. Write down what things are going well. It's kind of that gratitude journal, and it helps to reframe your thought, which is so important, because that mindset and attitude we talk about a lot. It's very important to help you keep well. And then the last tip they had was to try peer support, which is that discussion group that we set up. I really I'm happy to see that it's gone a little bit more active, and people are feeling safe to be able to post on there. That's the whole point of it. And please, if you don't feel like you can post on there, just email me and let me know so I can post it, and you can be anonymous. Or if you have questions or anything at all, and I really appreciate that some of you chimed in to just give support and motivate each other, as well as help provide positive words. Okay, so thank you for that. Yeah, and so then for this these things that you can try on your own, I bolded the ones that I use for myself. I haven't really done these other, and I have to confess, I didn't get a chance to look up what I guess this is Bach flower remedy. So it sounds, sorry about that. I'm gonna have to jump on a live session here pretty soon. But uh, in fact, this is the kind of the prep for that. But yeah, and I haven't tried any of these. And if you do try it, let me know how it goes. Um, yes, so yoga, meditation, aromatherapy, massage I've done all of those and they are effective. So give it a try if you haven't yet. The article also gives other treatments. I won't go through them. There's self-help resources. The one that is very effective is the cognitive behavioral therapy. That's for most psychology. It's very, very effective. Some of it is that self-talk to really help yourself reframe your thinking. And for the cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of it is you train yourself to take away the habit of catastrophizing everything. That can help calm down your prefrontal cortex, and then it won't activate your amygdala constantly all the time, which causes problems. And so other things that you may want to consider, I think the two key ones that comes up all the time for coping with anxiety would be the cognitive behavioral therapy. And we may not all get that benefit because you may have to pay someone or get a personal coach, for example, which is even having somebody there to guide you can help. And then, yeah, and so if you need that, again, just email me or post on the board, and I will in the discussion group, and then I'll post as well. The other one is to do exercise. Exercise is aside from the cognitive behavioral therapy, and maybe even more effective than cognitive behavioral therapy, is exercising. It's the best way to combat anxiety. Anxiety really responds to exercise because that anxiety is coming from your frontal cortex, the cortisol being fired out. And if you use that to your, like work it off, essentially, it gets rid of that out of your body. And then your body, instead of feeling that anxiety and sitting there not being able to do anything, it is putting it into doing something. Action solves everything. You really, if you just take that first step, even if it's a teeny tiny step, it will fix whatever it is you're going through. Okay. Even if it's a wrong step, you will correct it. You will correct yourself. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Okay. Okay. Then specific to the bar exam, you really want to, I kind of have these four main tips here. Preparation and planning is always key. So it helps you keep that balance, keep that calmness, because things tend to be a little more under control if you prepare and plan. So that means learn your substantive law, learn your rules, learn your materials. That's the key to passing this exam. You have to learn the law and learn it well. And then there's the procedural. And if you are my someone who is being coached by me personally, I talk about substantive versus like procedural, like the learning your substantive law, and then there's housekeeping things like the law. There's like substantive and there's procedural, and there are things that you do like learning the law, and then there's housekeeping stuff that you need to prepare for. And I always talk about asking these questions whenever you don't know what to do. And that's, where will you need to be? And the bar exam, you prepare so that the morning you're ready, and all those sorts of things. And that housekeeping, planning where you're going to study, all those things that we've talked about in other sessions. Avoid procrastination is the key. If you plan and prepare, you don't leave things to the last minute, which can be problematic. Learn as much as you can, but put things into perspective. Remember, you don't need to learn every single thing in your outline. You don't need to watch every single video for you to be able to pass this exam. The passing score for most jurisdiction is around 67.5, and that's a scale score. So that's like what is it, a D? And so when you put it in that frame mind, it really is where you can do this, prioritize what you need to focus on first, and then make progress. Remember, progress versus perfection. You don't have to be perfect in order to pass this exam. Okay? That means that at some point you're going to have to cut your losses. At some point you're going to have to stop learning new law. And that, I would say, probably about a week, or definitely the weekend, and definitely the day before. Do not look at new materials. Just review things that you've learned already, and you can still relearn, but don't look at new materials. And then you do, as far as doing simulated exams, there are some recommendations that says don't do it the week before. I think it's okay to do it a week before, even the weekend before. It's just a day before. Don't do a timed test. It may cause more anxiety. Okay. And then for the night before the first day of exam, I would recommend just try to relax your brain. There's not anything more that you can learn for you to make a difference. The last, most important, is to keep a good mindset and attitude. And your brain has these cortisol, and your brain don't know the difference between whether that's bad or good. So reframe your perspective and treat it as if it's a good thing. Be positive about it. Wow, I've got all this energy. I am going to rock it. It's game on, rather than, oh my goodness, it's going to be the gas chamber tomorrow. I don't know what to do. So reframe your thoughts, change your mindset, think positive, visualize yourself passing the exam, and you associate it with something joyful, something you enjoy doing, something you love to do, something you're good at. Like the night before a recital, and you remember you did really well at that recital. The night before a big game, and you scored the winning touchdown, you scored the winning point, whatever it is. Try to keep a really positive mindset, and it could keep things at bay and help you pass this exam. Okay, I have to